All right. Oh, that's a little. Welcome back to Total Disclosure. My name's Ty, and I'm the host of the show. Today, I'm actually really excited to get this episode kicked off. I've been having so much fun lately with the guests, doing the in-person shows, and right now I know I'm in a hybrid mode. But the goal, of course, in the new year is to start bringing everybody in to the studio. Hence why I purchased it, and have a second home to do this. So I'm really excited. We've been doing like a mix. Today we're going to be doing the virtual one. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure like, share, subscribe. Share with your friends, your families, your enemies, the grays. I really don't give a fuck, as long as it's getting out there. And if you're listening on one of the great podcast platforms, leave a rating and a review. It takes 20 seconds. And Lord knows you're going to be on your phone all day anyway. So might as well help a brother out. Today, we are joined by award-winning filmmaker and part-time comedian, UFO researcher, Dean Alioto. Oh my God. I didn't ask. I'm going to have to cut this.
They've got Italians in Boston, for God's sakes.
How do you say your last name? Alioto?
Close enough. Alioto. I soften the T. If you're in Italy, it's Alioto. If you're in Boston, it's Alioto.
It's something I always mean to ask people. I'm like, phonetically say it for me so I don't butcher it. All right. I'll cut that out. Today we're joined by award-winning filmmaker and part-time comedian, UFO researcher, Dean Alioto, a true pioneer in modern UFO storytelling. From the cult classic, The McPherson Tape, to consulting on James Fox's The Phenomenon, which arguably I think is one of the best films in the UFO community, and that is including Age of Disclosure. Dean has spent decades pushing this subject forward, and after an 8-year journey across countless countries and more than, I think, 60 interviews is what he told me, his latest documentaries, The Alien Perspective and Life Beyond Earth, are available on Amazon for purchase. I will already have the links in the description below. And we're going to ask some of the biggest questions like he has, regarding to humanity, and the phenomenon, and the biggest existential question that we face. It's something I'm really excited about. So Dean, welcome. This is going to be really fun. I can't wait. And thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome, brother. Happy to be here.
You are such a funny dude, bro.
Great. No pressure. I've got to be funny.
You were
Thanks
one
for
of
setting me up, dude.
I wish I did have you in studio, dude. Yeah, there's something, and this isn't to take away from, like the virtual interviews, but there's like an electricity when you're in the same room. And where I really fell in love with that was Contact, because I didn't, aside from like introducing people like Bledsoe and Melinda Leslie and Ryan Wood, I didn't watch a single panel. I was pulling people off the floor and just dragging to the media room and doing interview after interview after interview.
Yeah, they won't let you back into the Contact in the Desert because of that, by the way.
Yeah, I got kicked out. Yeah.
You're on the list.
I'm on the list now. But I fell in love with it. The electricity of just feeding off the other person. And yeah, I would love to, I can't wait to bring you here and so many others. But tell me a little bit about how, because I mean, some of the films you've worked on, like The Phenomenon, The Phenomenon, that's one of the first ones I recommend for people that are coming into this field. The Alien Perspective, that was one that I watched, and I was so impressed with just the storytelling. So I just like to hear about, how did you get into filmmaking, and specifically UFO filmmaking?
The journey started with a divorce. My father got me. My mother got my other brothers, older, younger, and so I spent a lot of time in Sacramento for the first 9 years, basically, of my life. And so from 7 to 9, I'm with my father, and I'm out looking at the stars. every night before I go to bed, just kind of imagining that there was someone else out there that was going through the same shit that I was going through. And, feeling not as alone. And so whenever I would see those stars sparkle, I always looked upon that as being a heartbeat for some reason. And it just kind of resonated. And then I started seeing shows like In Search Of, and would find books at the library
Right.
that were, dealing with, Chariots of the Gods, and even Bermuda
Yeah.
and stuff. Anything weird that was out there that was fun, I was all in. And then I remember seeing, I think it was called Interrupted Journey, the Barney and Betty Hill story.
Yeah.
It was a TV movie with James Earl Jones, Darth Vader, and Estelle Parsons, and that was creepy and great. And then I would say that I saw Star Wars obviously first, because that came out in May, and I had to see it 4 times because the story, very simple story: rescue princess, destroy. I'm not giving away any spoilers here. Destroy the Death Star, and that was it. As simple as that was, I couldn't take that in because I'm a little dyslexic, and so I'm skewed visually. So I'm very forward visual. So I was just taking in all the art direction, the costumes, everything, and it was just blowing my mind. It was just like, crack. And so anyway, and then 6 months later, we get Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Damn.
Yeah, and that knocked me on my ass. And I remember at first going, well, I already have a mad crush on this other thing, Star Wars. And who's this guy coming along thinking he's going to work in sci-fi as well? Because my allegiance, is to, and so anyway, it's like, the Sox and the Phillies, what are you going to do? Well, you know what you got to do.
Yeah,
so anyway,
of course.
But the thing about Close Encounters of the Third Kind that Star Wars didn't have is it had a spirituality where it takes this guy, puts him on this journey. There's no bad guys in the whole film, yet I'm watching clearly an action sci-fi drama with a healthy dose of comedy, by the way.
Yeah.
And relating to all of it and feeling this compulsion, this compelling that there's something bigger out there. And so when he's saying this means something in the movie throughout, I would look at the stars and I would say the same thing. This means something. So it totally connected with me, resonated. And that was it. And so when I was younger, I did stunts. I did Super 8 stunt movies. And then I was a magician. I was an escape artist, always performing, dealing with some forms of effects. And so here comes Spielberg again. At this point, I had dropped out of high school before I flunked out because, again, I didn't know that I was dyslexic. I just knew that I couldn't.
They didn't at that time. It's not like they were testing for that kind of stuff all the time, and unless you're, specifically asking for these things, they're not going to pull you out and be like, "Hey, this is what's happening."
No, they had tested. The only thing they did is early on they did an IQ test, and that was it. And that was kind of a standard. I don't even think they do that anymore. No. And so I tested well enough on that they thought, oh, this guy is, what's his problem? He's just lazy.
Yeah. Not
knowing that you can test high, but yet you can be dyslexic and the two don't always dance well together. So anyway, I dropped out of school thinking I was going to be, for lack of better thing, because I knew I love entertainment, that I was going to be an actor. And, but again, I was always more interested in how things came together, the mechanics of things. If I was going out to audition for a school play, I would walk into the audition. I would go, this kid, that guy should do that part because he's better at it. But how are they going to do the tornado on stage? I want to see how that plays out. So I drop out 6 months. My mother's cool with it. She's like, you're going to read newspaper every day and you're going to get a job. And so I'm doing that. And then I go to the movies and I see E.T. Spielberg hits me again. And I see a sneak preview of it. So I know nothing about this. And I'm like, hold on. My mother is now, because I had moved back with my mother. So my mother's raising 3 boys on her own, 3 kids. I'm the fucked up middle child.
Yep.
Tick that box. I love UFOs and aliens. There he is with an alien. Tick that box. And I'm seeing so much of my life in ET, and except for the product placement of Reese's Pieces, I never received anything. But I'm just looking at that. I'm going, okay, this is something magical, filmmaking, where it can take what I had perceived as being like 400 blows, Truffaut's
Right.
film. If you haven't seen it, it's
Oh,
not about
yeah.
cocaine or anything. It's a different type of blow. And I thought of it as a tragedy, and Spielberg's going, no, this isn't a tragedy. This is special. This is fertilizer for imagination. So I came home and I literally said to my mother, I'm a filmmaker. That's it. And so from 82 on, which, by the way, 82, can we talk about 82? Within a month and a half, here's what comes out. E.T., Blade Runner, The Thing,
Wow.
and something else really big. Was it Tron? I forgot what it was.
It might be Tron, yeah.
Within a short period of time, sci-fi geeks were like, completely,
They were made.
Oh, in Nirvana, dude. It was amazing. And so anyway, I went back to school, and first I got my GED, then I got my then I graduated, got my full high school diploma. And then I got into a great film program at San Francisco State University. And it was, Jesus Christ, I'm taking way too long to answer this question. Wasn't a simple question, and I went running with it?
Yeah.
But I'm at the precipice, so let me just, I'll bring it home. I'll bring it home for us. So basically what happens is I, again, hit dyslexia wall because my syllabus has in it, in English, a stack of books like this high. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to do that in a quarter. And then I'm doing astronomy, and I'm so excited. And then they start using trigonometry. And I'm having to drop out of classes left and right. So I say, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to take a year off, save up enough money, and go to USC and just take film classes, extension classes. So I did that. So I went to USC and took film classes and stuff. And that was great. And then finally, what led me hardcore as a filmmaker into this was shortly thereafter, I was turning 25. And because all of my filmmaking idols had made their first film by 25, there was undue pressure that I put on myself that I needed to make my first film by 25. And so back then it was either 16 millimeter to shoot a movie in, or it was 35 millimeter, which was extremely expensive. And so there wasn't DSLR and mirrorless cameras, et cetera, right? So anyway, I talked to a buddy of mine, and he said, hey, I'll help you, finance your film. And I'm like, great. What do you have? And he says, I got $6,500. And I had been doing wedding videos with a buddy of mine, and I said, yeah, that's like the budget for a wedding video, a nice wedding video. That's not going to work.
It's not going to bring us to where we need it.
No. And then Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And I read that. Actually, I listened to the audio tape with Roddy McDowall. And if you haven't listened to it, folks, unfortunately, it's the abridged version. But Roddy McDowall, man, does he totally crush it. Yeah, it's amazing. And so anyway, listen to that. I'm more terrified than any Stephen King book I'd ever read. And Roddy McDowall, if you guys don't know, was the original Planet of the Apes. He was Galen. He was Caesar. He was Cornelius.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he gives a great performance. And so I thought, oh shit, what if because I'm so affected by this and I want to be able to translate this to an audience who haven't had these experiences like myself. How would that look like? How do you put yourself in the first person? I mean, Dracula, all these great, Gothic novels were done in that style, kind of first person that would put you in that, like a journal. So I thought, well, what would be the equivalent of that as a filmmaker and a film? And then I hit on the idea of, oh, what if we do a home video where something, for a benign thing like a little girl's 5-year-old birthday party, and then the shit hits the fan and, introduce aliens, and then they all one by one get abducted. And so that was it. And so I called up my friend and said, all right, we're back on. Let's do this.
And so, now that budget kind of works, right?
Now it's perfect. And we came in on budget. And the guy who did the Ship and Aliens, who went on to do the first Fantastic Four film and work with Tim Burton, Bill Bose is his name, amazing talent. He only had $750 to do the Ship and the Aliens, and he crushed it and did a great job. So we make this thing, and so now I'm a filmmaker. I can check that box.
Check that box, yeah.
No one wants to touch it because it's so weird, and it's 10 years before Blair Witch.
I was gonna say it's Blair Witch before Blair Witch makes that a popular, the found footage kind of popularity. That's crazy. I did not.
Dude.
Wow. So you said one thing that really interests me though.
Only one thing? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No.
Let me work on it.
God damn. I don't know how I'm going to interview you. Dude, too busy friggin' laughing. You said one thing, that for people who weren't having these experiences like I was. So what do you mean by that?
I don't know, dude. I'm just talking out of my ass. I think no.
Were you having any experiences with the phenomenon?
No, and I'm pissed off because I'm dreaming of it. I'm the one that, was that kid still every night. I would, not every night, but occasionally I would go back on my, porch of the house where I lived in the Bay Area, and I'm looking at the stars. I really want to have this experience. And after reading Whitley's book, I really want to, specifically, try to have a communion with them. Not happening. And so I think this is the reason why Spielberg keeps making UFO films, because we want this wish fulfillment. We have this wish fulfillment that we want to cement and materialize. And so we use our imagination in order to recreate it. So flash forward after I make this movie and it gets distributed, and there's a whole other story there where the distribution company burned to the ground. I lost my main master and artwork, but some mom and pop video stores had some advanced screeners, and someone edited off the credits and injected to the UFO community. So it becomes this big UFO kind of sensation thing, and believed to be real, et cetera. And I have to go on national TV and debunk my own film. So that all happens. And then I end up doing a remake for UPN. So the original was called UFO Abduction, AKA the McPherson tape. And then I did a remake for UPN TV, their first TV movie called Alien Abduction, Incident Lake County. And that did well, which pissed off the new head of the network because he thought this was a piece of crap. And thank God they were here to save the network. And so another long story. Anyway, so for the 25th anniversary of my film, The McPherson Tape, I talked to Alejandro Rojas, and he says, "Hey, you should come and do a speaking engagement here, like a 75-minute TED Talk, if you will, about this film, the journey, and you as a filmmaker, and all the conspiracy theories." And there's a crap load of them on the film and me. And so at first I refused because I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't think that they're going to dig me, because I think they maybe take this too serious. And I'm a smart ass, as you can tell. And he says, no, they've got a great sense of humor. The community is awesome. I'm like, oh, all right. So I go out there, Scottsdale, Arizona, and everything he said was correct. These were the funnest group of people, like-minded nerds like me, all just completely swimming in the phenomenon. And again, a lot of experiencers there, and a lot of people who really want to have that experience and are there as kind of investigative journalists, if you will. And so I start meeting people out of Montana Tech, like Professor Michael Masters, and other people who are working the space, who are highly accredited academia. And I'm going, okay, I think there's a documentary here, and I've done documentaries for TV and cable and stuff. And so I thought, well, what if I take what I've learned and do it? Because at the time, most of the UFO documentaries looked like it was some guy who grabbed their iPhone and cornered their favorite UFO guru while they were waiting for the elevator and quickly interviewed them and then cut in some stock footage. And that was it, except for James Fox, who was doing, nicer stuff. And there were a few other, Yeah, and acknowledge. And there were a few other filmmakers that were doing some really great things, but most of it was that. And I thought, okay, well, I really want to have this be a science doc, and I want to have the production value and everything feel like you're just watching a science doc. And this isn't a braggadocio thing. It's I want to be able to get people who haven't spent time in the UFO rabbit hole, if you will, and show them, no, there's something to this. And so there's a certain format and stuff that you abide by in order to do that. And so that set me off on my journey that I thought, oh, I'll be done in 9 months, 15 interviews, and then that's it. And then I'll do that, and then I'll go. Yeah, then I'll go back. I'll hang it up. Then I'll go back to doing, scripted sci-fi stuff, whatever.
Right.
So that's not how the phenomenon works at all. It laughs at you when you declare anything. And here I am 8 years later, about to enter my 9th year. And I've done 4 interviews. And like you said, it's 68 interviews. I think Diane, what is her name?
Powell?
She hosts the second one, Life Beyond Earth, the one that came out recently. No, Diane Hennessy with the telepathy tapes.
Right.
She was the last interview I did. And so I've got these 4 documentaries, 5 countries. And I was talking to Yvonne Smith, who's a great hypnotherapist who works with experiencers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said to her one time, I got so burnt and so fed up because, these things cost a lot and
a lot.
It's like, it's a very expensive hobby. And already filmmaking is the most expensive art form in the history of mankind. And so I'm, gambling, throwing down hard, but I just really believe in this. And I say to her, I go, one time after we were filming, I said, I don't understand what the hell's going on. I'm not an experiencer. So I've combed through my past. I have no missing time, nothing anomalous. And she looks at me like I'm an idiot, which is probably true. And she says, Dean, they don't need to knock on your door to get to you.
Exactly.
Which I found both interesting and frightening. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, basically the idea there is that, a lot of people become agents of this. The muse comes, and sometimes the muse is a creative muse, and sometimes maybe they're from another planet, dimension, or the future. So I'm still trying to figure out that one. But it completely changed the way that I make movies, because the documentaries, when I started out, what you do as a filmmaker when you're trying, or a storyteller, you're trying to tell a story that has been told beforehand to some extent. Every story is different. You look at what everyone's doing and then you run the other way. So all the other documentaries were all from the human's perspective. And I'm like, okay, hold on. What if we look at it from their perspective? Flip it. And so that's where the idea of the alien perspective came from. And then that was my compass. So
I love it. And I like what Yvonne said, that they don't always have to knock on your door. And in this topic specifically, it seems like once it gets a hold of you, or you get a hold of, whatever form that takes, I've interviewed many people, and many of them, or at least a handful of them, were like, I just want to do this interview. I want to come out, I want to tell my story, and I want to move on. And I tell them every single time, you may want that now, but I can promise you, if the phenomenon wants you around, you're going to be around, and you're never going to get away from it. This topic has a way of pulling you in and never letting you go. And it's the only thing I've ever seen do that, because I did work in Hollywood. I did all that. I did that stuff. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. It's what I again, like you, from the first time I ever saw a film, and the way it elicited emotions that I had never even felt before. And how did something on a silver screen do that to me? I had a quote unquote rough childhood, not in the way of like being abused, not like that, but we didn't have money. My dad was in jail. My mom was raising 4 kids on her own. It just, we didn't have, so I was very shut off as a person. I didn't there was few people in my life that knew the whole story because I wouldn't let people get close enough to see anything. And I forget where I'm even going with this. Yeah. So the way a film was able to elicit those kind of emotions from me, the first movie I saw, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to do that to other people. And then I chased that dream, and it turns out it wasn't for me specifically, the Hollywood version of it, but this version of it, it took me a little bit longer to find. And I had my own experiences, which, I had a sighting when I was younger. And then when my mom passed away, I was in the room and I saw something in the room as she passed. And it was at that moment, it was like her pushing me right back. It was because she's involved with both of the experiences I had. If she didn't ask me to stay home from school at 12 years old, I wouldn't have saw the craft, the nuts and bolts craft that inspired me to see the world that isn't, because she didn't, like, I ran in the house and I was like, Mom, I just saw it. And she was like, just chill. Like, you saw a UFO. She didn't say I was crazy. She didn't say I saw God or an angel. She didn't try to force any view upon me. She just said, you saw something we don't understand. And then she took me to the library every single day for 2 weeks. And it's funny how you said, like, communion, because I had that same experience just at a very much later time, 20 years ago. And yeah, I was off to the races. But when she passed away, I saw like this orb in the room, and it went out the window, and then I looked back and she was gone. And it was like her last nudge of, hey, you're almost there. You're on the right track, but boom, here's one last push. And then Total Disclosure was born, and I haven't stopped since. So I think fate, whether you want to call it fate or destiny or, the muse or your calling, I think we're all in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think your title change from your original, which was like Totally Disclosure, I think Total Disclosure is much better. So you definitely are in the right place, my friend.
Like Totally Disclosure, dude. Oh man. But
yeah, it is, dude. I have a script about this this young guy who gets abducted, and he describes it as alien STD, where you get infected with it, and sometimes you infect others, because there are stories of, people who are around people who all of a sudden, especially if it's a loved one, spouse, etc., that it doesn't always stick with, patient zero.
Yeah, the hitchhiker effect.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you saw the orb, which, Chris Bledsoe is, that's his thing. He's the orb, Dr. Orb. He needs a handle. Other people got handles. You've got Mr. Disclosure, and people are fighting over that. I think Bassett might be the first one, and then you got Greer. But anyway,
Yep.
I have a theory, which is that, and I don't think that I came up with this, but early on in my research, 8 years ago on this, when I would hear that there would be loved ones next to craft, I thought, well, that's weird, because does that mean that the UFOs are traveling in the astral plane? And
right.
Because people will say they've seen ghosts that look as real as you and I, like right there. They will swear that they could go up and touch it. And so if UFOs have figured out how to do that, and these, non-human NHIs, intelligence, have figured that out, then it would make sense that you would see loved ones there sometimes.
Yeah.
But with regards to the orb and stuff, I mean, before I went hardcore into the UFO world, I was very spiritual, still am. And I would read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and
Oh, really?
and I would read like the Holographic Universe and all this stuff, and Seth Speaks, all into that. And I find so much crossover between the two, and like reincarnation and everything. And I, from what I've gathered, these orbs could be a soul. And so each of us, we have a soul, and when we die, because the physical matter, energy doesn't die. We know that. That's been luckily proven. And so what happens with it? Well, the body drops, and then, your spirit continues. And, there's a term called xenoglossy, which is when kids can speak another language when they're born. They're in Michigan and they can speak French, or they can speak Chinese.
That's real?
Yeah. Or they can play the piano. How many times have you heard about these little prodigies who go up and are playing the piano? So that is a term, xenoglossy. And so that to me is residual from a past life.
Right.
Like the James Lydecker story, this kid who was a pilot. Yeah. Right.
And he was shot down, and they found like the right. Is that story?
Yeah. The parents were able to track down who this kid said he was, and then actually bring him to a reunion where all of the World War II, pilot buddies and stuff got together. And by the end of it, they were calling him by his nickname, and he knew all their nicknames without having, ever met them.
Fucking crazy. That's and that's, I think because we are so attuned to this life, this reality that, that we form around us, and, whether our parents have something to do with it, but, we're born in, and then we're brought up thinking the world is black and white, right? It's either yes, no, it's a 1 or a 0. It's alive or it's dead. It's not until later on in life that you realize how much gray there really is. And once you start seeing the gray, I think it's ironic, right? Once you start seeing the gray.
Nice work that in.
Once you start seeing that gray, I think then that is once you realize we don't know everything, and there's it brings a little bit more magic back to your life, and it's a driving force for a lot of people.
Yeah. Agree 100%. I spoke at Filmmaking not too long ago. And and I do have to say, I met Jay Stratton, and I wish I'd heard this thing that he said in Age of Disclosure, because I hadn't seen it yet, which is that the government has funded movies on UFOs is emphatically wrong. I don't know where he's getting that information, that intel, if you will, but it is 100% wrong. And I don't mean it.
Can you run that back? What did he say?
He said that that the government has funded before UFO projects like Hollywood films. Because I believe what he said, Hollywood films. And I'm not doing this to call him out or anything. He's a nice guy. I got along with him well. But he's being told this from people who are full of shit. There is not one film that is out there that has ever been funded. Spielberg has never had his films funded. I know Escape from Witch Mountain, they said that they worked with the government and someone came on and gave them pointers and stuff, but they don't fund movies, believe me. We would be in line there with their hands out a mile long to get funding. I wish that was the case. We don't need to do that. The public is already interested in that. Studio is already open to financing some of these, and independent filmmakers will, make films regardless. But anyway, it's really something that you get into, and then you find that, because a lot of people, like you're saying, it's like you say, oh, I'm just going to go and I'm done, and I'm just going to say my piece, and I'm going to get out of the UFO thing.
Yeah.
There's the inverse of that, which is you have people who they have something to say, but they don't want to go. Mm-hmm. They want more of that 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes,
how do I stay relevant?
Yeah. Then it can cross over into what I call UFO carpetbagging, which is, where you're saying things to keep it alive and everything. And so, like the dates, when you're giving dates, I'm being told, 2027, I'm being told.
Oh my God, it drives me nuts.
And I was on a panel at Contact in the Desert, and I won't say who said that, but I just kind of bemoaned and said, if I bet on every single date that was supposed to happen, where we were going to have full disclosure, like totally disclosure.
Totally disclosure.
Yeah, I could fund all my films based on all the money I would make from those bets. It's a bigger thing. So when I was speaking at the Phenomenon, I said, guys, let's just step back and look at where we're at. And where we're at right now is that we're not very far advanced. And that's a problem because there's two types of advancements that any civilization has. And we keep forgetting to factor the second one. The first one is technology, which is the flashy, look what we can do. The second is mature advancement, maturity as a civilization. And we are not mature enough to be part of any kind of, if you will, for lack of a better word, galactic federation. In fact, I don't think the bouncer even lets us stand in line at the Galactic Federation Club.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we are best represented as a little kitten who's running down the hallway and its hind legs are running ahead of it. It trips. That's humans right now. You know, when you look from 1869, where we were, torches and, lamps that you would turn on, but you needed light, and horse and buggy. And then you go to 1969 and we're on the moon. That's a pretty big advancement.
Allegedly.
And we can do great things. And the reason why that advancement happened, which was off the charts, was because there was an existential threat from another nation. So our motivations for things are all jacked up, dude. If we wanted to, here's the thing, Carl Sagan, brilliant astronomer. He helped design Voyager and what was going to be on that.
Yep.
On that, satellite.
The golden tape.
The golden record. I think it's a record.
Yeah, the record. Sorry.
Yeah, that has, thank God it's got a Beatles song on there, Chuck Berry, and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But it's basically hello in a zillion different languages. He said, the Cold War started right after World War II, and it went well into the 80s, 90s, and then tapered off. And they spent well over $1 trillion. And they said, look, ultimately, that was not a good spend. And everyone's agreed on that. But we know that the environment is fucked. We know that the things that we've done to it are they have a chain reaction that's been going on forever. And people talk about, I'm not going to get into all the details of it. And please don't politicize this. You can actually see it. And I talk to people. I've shot in 33 states and I've talked to people and they're dealing with this, fishermen, et cetera. The rainforests, you think, oh, that's where all the oxygen comes from. A smaller percentage comes from that. The bigger percentage comes from coral.
And we are
coral in the sea. And we're just trashing the hell out of that because we're doing mass fishing, stuff like that.
Yeah. If
we took that $1 trillion that we spent on the Cold War and we put into technologies to help us, we could have our cake and eat it too, no problem. Mm-hmm. But we don't do that. And so I remember being at Shag Harbor and I kept hearing what they want, disclosure, what they want, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, hold on, guys, what is disclosure? Explain to me what you want. And one of the things was, we want technology. And I go, okay, let's unpack that. You get technology. Let's look at the two biggest technologies that people want. Number one is they want gravity, be able to control gravity. Because then our planes can weigh as much as a car and we can have them flying back and forth. And I go, that's cool. I'm with you there. However, we weaponize literally everything.
Everything.
And if you go to get a patent on something that could be weaponized as well as advance us, DOD, Department of Energy, comes in and says,
slaps a national security tag on it.
Boom, over, right? The problem with anti-gravity is people are going to use it to bounce certain people off the planet and maybe certain nations and be able to say we can elevate them or levitate them and kick them off the planet. That's not good. The other is the environment and cleaning it up. And so I'm a parent. And so the idea of aliens coming in and saying, all right, step away, step aside, give us some room, cleaning up the room and then leaving is antithetical to our evolution. We have to figure out these things. We have to be allowed to grow. There's no shortcuts in life. And as soon as we we get everything cleaned up, we're going to jack it up again. That's how we are. So until we get to a place, I believe, where we're able to treat people mutually and see if someone's hurting, that means that we're hurting, the weakest link or the chain type of thing. We're not going to get there. And so we're going to get little clues and stuff. I always say that, right now, it's like we're able to get to the precipice of a freeway and we're able to see all the cars of the future race by. And those are the UFOs that we see. But it may be a better analogy is that we are getting teasers, not even a full trailer to what's to come when we do see craft and when we do have, experiences with the beings. And there's a certain amount of people that can handle. This is a frustrating thing is when I go to UFO conventions and meet all the people there, I firmly believe that everyone here could handle whatever would be brought and they would be cool with it and they would handle it responsibly. But that's not the 1% that controls the world and controls everything with regards to what gets parsed out and everything. And so until we get to that place where we have proper people, who are in positions of power, who are basically, benign and looking out for everyone's good, we're going to be a nation that isn't, a people that isn't, ready yet. But we're going to get there. I mean, that's the good news, I believe, is that we're going to get to the finish line.
You're optimistic.
Yeah.
You are.
But I know that there's right now rumblings of another congressional hearing that's going to be happening. And unfortunately, he's having, I forgot who one of the many congresspersons is doing this. I forgot his name.
Burleson?
Maybe. Yeah. And so, but they're having trouble with whistleblowers because, because of the way that, they said one thing and then the government's doing another thing. And so, anyway, my point, if I have a point here, is just to say that, we've got to be patient as a species, and we have to work on ourselves before, it's like when you're going out. So I was married for a long time. And now I'm on, I was on dating apps and everything. In fact, I met my current girlfriend on Tinder.
That's how you do it now.
That's how you do it. It works. And so, and Tinder isn't the, the hookup thing. It's just like all of them. So don't get all excited and everything,
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, but it is the way that people meet now. And is it superficial at first? Yeah. You're basing, it on looks and, a couple sentences, but the point is to get past that. That's also, if you're at a bar, that's how you judge a person you're going to go flirt with.
Yeah. It's the judging the book by its cover.
Yeah. You're swiping left and right in the bar, just in your brain. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my point is, that I needed to work on myself. Yes. Because a lot has changed since when I was with this person and after, and I found these issues that were coming up. I didn't know how to be with myself. It becomes this thing that you can't help but have like codependent issues that you go, oh, wait a second, I need to do this. So, I spent, 3 years, being single and everything. And so I was ready when it was time to be back out there and everything, and found someone who I'm extremely happy with. And so it was, but I had to go through that. There's no shortcuts. And so it's the rub again, is that there's a bunch of us that are out here more than I think that we get credit for, who can handle the truth and would be able to handle it, and these experiences, whether they're like John Mack says, that they have a dual alien identity, which is that they're reincarnated from a planet or a dimension, wherever these beings come from, and they're being abducted because they agreed to this.
Right.
Again, the clues are really interesting because the beings have said time and time again, we have every right to do this.
Yeah.
Well, either you made us, you created us, because that would give you the right, or we agreed to this.
Either one.
And
I find that to be very interesting. John Mack is a, I'm in Boston, so Harvard, and I've had Avi Loeb in here, and I mean, you name it, anyone in this area, that's someone. But John is obviously someone I've researched a lot into, and I like what. So for either of those scenarios, whether there is some sort of soul contract that we sign, and then yeah, they do have the right to take us, if you will, or the other hand is they are the creator, and like you said, inherently just kind of gives them the right to play with their creation.
I'm going to pause you right there. Not because I'm going to use the restroom. There've been a lot of talk about the Anunnaki.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So the Anunnaki.
You read my mind.
Yeah. The Anunnaki, guys, was created, I think was it Sitchin or.
Yeah. Zachariah Sitchin.
Or Kurt
von Daniken.
Yeah.
Eric von Daniken. Yeah.
Yeah. And Daniken. Yeah. He has mentioned candidly about it that he was basically taking from mythology that was every bit as credible as Apollo, Poseidon, Hades, Hercules. I mean, all of it was a mythology. Here's the thing. If you come here and you create people, that's a shitty job, right? You're not done. We're half baked. You couldn't maybe genetically. We breed dogs and cats, dude. Why can't we breed out greed and corruption from and insecurity? That'd be great from humans. Right? So I'm kind of like, come on. I'm not buying that. And so my feeling is that that they didn't.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait. So you're not buying. You don't think? Okay. Let me hit you with something real quick.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't believe in evolution. I'm not crazy, right? I clearly, evolution is a thing and we see it. But don't you think it's a little odd that like we shed our pelts, or we shed our fur and we stood upright only to have back problems, to need pelts in the winter. The sun burns us. Our biological clock is more attuned to Mars's schedule than it is to Earth's schedule. And we seem like we don't fit into the overall ecosystem of the Earth, like say a bee does. A bee has many, a bee, takes the pollen and then pollinates the flower, takes this and pollinates the flower.
Instinctual functions.
Right. Yeah. It seems all we do is like, if we stopped creating the iPhone, if we just paused everything and decided, all right, technologically, we're pretty good. Stop here and we'll just do maintenance and we'll just keep making the iPhone 17. But no, we can't do that. We need the next best thing. It's that constant drive to keep creating. We take more than we give to the earth. So like part of the Anunnaki story that resonates with me is that idea that we were bred for one thing. I don't know. Again,
wait, go on. We were bred for one thing. What is that? What is that one thing?
Well, if you're going to go by the story, it's to slave mine gold to give back to them, so that they can repair the atmosphere. I mean, is that true? I don't know. Probably not. But it does seem like we are a one-track mind kind of species.
Okay. So we're a type 0.7 species. We're not even a type 1 species. There's three that have been, again, this was created by a Russian who had this whole breakdown, and you can look at it online. I won't bore you with all the details of it. And there's a belief that there's a fourth and fifth. So we're not capable of any of this stuff. If there is a species out there that can literally come to a planet and it can seed humans, they can't work this other shit out. Doesn't make sense. It's like dropping the ball. Like, you know what? I worked on it for a little bit. I'm done. I'm going to go off and do something else that is more important. So here's the thing. The reason why we don't have pelts and everything is that evolution, we get smarter. And how does anyone get smarter? Curiosity. and necessity, but it's the same thing. Curiosity. Oh, what if you did this? What if this? What if that? And that's something that we share with these beings. Professor Michio Kaku in Life Beyond Earth, the newer doc, says, I think that they would look at us aliens as being ants. And then you cut to, I've got in my interview with Dave Foley, actor, ufologist. Yeah. Dave goes, it's called entomologist, and we have them. And so they would be interested. So curiosity is what propels us. So here we are. We're going along, and we can trace pretty much where we, go, and we start to make our leaps and shape and reshape and everything. And Michael Masters can articulate this much better than I. But then we discover fire several times, by the way. We just don't discover it once and then someone says, hey, dude, check out what these guys are doing in this village. It's crazy. We see it like lightning hits, and then we go, hey, and we rub two things together. And, what's that moment like when they first rub things together? Why are they rubbing things together? That's a whole other discussion.
Spark, literally.
The spark of genius. And so we don't have to chew our food, raw meat anymore.
Right.
And so we're now able to cook things. So what that does is it alleviates the space that we need for a real strong jawline or jawbone and everything. And then it starts to open up our skulls, which allow our brains to get bigger and bigger. And then as we're going along and we're able to fend off for ourselves, we're a little bit smarter. We start to walk more and more upright as well. And we were starting to do that already before fire. And so it's this gradual thing where we're able to take away things that we needed to compensate, like to have pelts because we couldn't keep warm. All that goes away. And so we don't need that anymore. So the necessity of it goes away. And the way that evolution works is it provides for you, right? So that's the argument for that, which is why I think at the end of the day, when I started out doing these documentaries, I was like, they're from another planet. That makes sense. Then I love Jacques Vallée's book Dimension. So I'm like, oh, they're from another dimension. And then, you look at alternate universes, this and that. And then I've kind of settled on, again, the extraterrestrial theory, Masters theory, which isn't his alone, but he's refined it.
Popularized it.
For me, that's where if someone put a gun to my head, if an alien put a ray gun to my head and said, hey, guess where we're from?
Future, because this is something I'm really, really interested in, is because if we look at where a tragedy, when I say tragedy, I mean like apocalypse level, where would that likely be? And it would be our nuclear facilities. That's if I was a betting man, I would put money that the end of our world, or what would cause the end of the world, ground zero would be some sort of nuclear facility. And it seems that these things have a very high interest in our nuclear capabilities. Now, whether it's shutting weapons off like at Minot and Malmstrom and other places, or turning them on in the modern day Ukraine, former Soviet Union, and just other places, they clearly are interacting. So does something happen in our future, their past, that they are now trying to fix, whether it's a genetic issue or something else entirely? It seems very, very plausible and likely. And that's why you'd have Arrow, right? This organization using very specific language. We don't have proof for extraterrestrial visitation of this earth. Well, why are you using that word? No one said to use that word. The U stands for unidentified. Why are you limiting it to one thing? Well, I think that's because, and I've had Tim Phillips on, and I tried to grill him on this, and he just wouldn't answer. That wording is very specific.
Bamboo shoots to the nails. We'll
Exactly.
squeal like a pig. Next time you threaten to shove that up the, sorry.
Well,
Go on.
he might be the one doing it to me with that
You
guy's
might be the one
past.
doing it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, Jesus. But you know, so I do. I've wanted to talk to Michael for a long time. He's one of the people that's on my list, and of course, you know, you were on that list as well. And as long as I'm in the right place at the right time, it will happen.
Alphabetical, right? Alphabetical. You got to do
Yep,
alphabetical.
go
Alioto.
alphabetical. I
All right.
actually started with I'm just kidding. I won't go that way. But so is that so? Gun to your head, you think the most likely case is time travel is created in the future, whether it's by accident or it's a subsequent feature of this propulsion system, and they're back here and they're trying to potentially monitor, fix, or change their past, our future?
I'm so glad you asked me that, Ty, because I have all the answers, and
I'm glad you do.
I'll have a GoFundMe that'll be up there. Send me money. Everything you have or you don't have.
If you have the secret sauce and a PayPal link, run.
Yes. All right. So what are the two things that the aliens say, the messaging? Two messages that they say over and over.
Get rid of our nukes. Treat the planet better.
No.
Oh,
Close. You're 50 for 50.
okay.
Your technology isn't helping you. Not your nukes. They never say nukes. That would be funny if they said nukes instead of saying nuclear.
Yeah, right.
Nukes. Yeah,
Like,
those nukes,
those
man.
nukes offline.
Those
man.
aren't cool, dude. You got to get rid of them. Your technology isn't helping you. So I don't know that is a reference to nuclear. I think it's a reference to these. I think it's a reference to our smartphones or technology that we're doing. This poses a bigger threat, much bigger threat than any nuclear weapon and stopping a nuclear weapon. You can stop a nuclear weapon. We have deterrents to do that to a degree. And with their power, I'm sure they could easily do that. But we cannot stop the addiction that the smartphone is. And so if you show up, and it's interesting that they're doing this now, and they did it at Ariel School, 1994.
The Rua case that's a perfect example. Continue.
Yeah. Your technology isn't helping you. And if they showed up with the same message in, say, the 1700s, we would be going, as humans, we'd be going, what? The printing press? That's not good. That's not helping us. So it's interesting that they're talking about that during our time. And like a full decade before the smartphone comes along, which is 2008, I believe. And so that to me is the bigger threat. We are literally slowing down in the creation of humans. There's a big problem with that, and in Asia, very big problem as well. In fact, there's belief that China is reducing at an alarming rate, and that they don't have the billions that everyone thought that they did in population. And so it's making it more difficult. And so humans react. We're very kind of simple. We're a little bit like lab rats. And so we work off of impulses and dopamine hits. And if you can get all of that in the palm of your hand or through goggles, then what are you going to be? What is the motivator to be meeting someone and having these real life experiences that have their own dopamine hits? That's going to be going away. That to me is the scariest thing ahead of everything before we get into the are they from the future?
Right. And you're right. Like, so it's, it's kind of crazy to me, I live in a city, of course, Boston. And, I was talking to this guy the other day, and not to get off topic here, but he was saying, like, even when you used to go on like the subway, right, there would be like some people on the paper, they'd have the paper out. And if they had the paper out, like, hey, they're reading, don't talk to them. But it was more social, like people would talk to each other. Now you get on the train and everybody's got headphones in and they're looking straight down at their phone. And, then comes to, so that's just a glimpse into it. But then, like porn, it's on the phone. It's like that. You don't even have to go out and meet anyone. You just watch. So yeah, there is a huge decrease in our in people having kids, because why have kids when you can play video games, drink Mountain Dew, and then watch one of the most, arguably,
And don't forget Hot Pockets. You
yeah,
got Mountain Dew and Hot Pockets at will with
at
a
will.
microwave. That modern technology changes
Consistent.
everything.
And I used to know every single one of my friends' phone numbers.
Yes.
I used to know every single turn, left, right, highway. I could barely get back to my house without a GPS.
The Thomas Guide. We had the Thomas Guide back in the day.
Toms and
to help us get around, dude. Yeah, it's not great. It really isn't.
We're dumbing ourselves down.
We're dumbing ourselves down, and so ultimately, it's all going to be glasses that everyone's going to be wearing, or contact lenses, and they'll be doing all this stuff. Yeah, and they'll be walking down the street. And the thing that is a little disconcerting is that the more technology we have and the more that we infuse and imprint into our lives, the more we're susceptible to be manipulated, and security breaches are happening left and right with regards to that. And so it's Big Brother. That's a whole other thing. But I do want to get back to your point, which is being time travelers. We are going to figure out time travel. Einstein allowed for that. And whether it's spooky physics or whatever, we're going to figure that out. The big question, or the present understanding, is that you can't go back beyond the time that you created the time travel machine. Well, that makes no sense. Time is a spiral. It's a loop. You can, like a record, you can drop in any time once you have that technology. Right. So I think ultimately we are going to figure that out. And wouldn't we go back in time and look at ourselves? And if you project us out into the future, we're becoming bold, or less hairy. Our craniums are getting bigger. I asked Masters in my documentary, I said, well, what's with the small aliens, the little worker bees, and then we've got the 6 foot tall ones? And he says, well, height is an interesting thing because it changes through the scarcity of food and where we're at and everything. So, that can be a sign of that fluctuation. But our eyes are getting bigger. At some point, are we going to need the pinky? Because it looks like they've been reported to only have, the 4 fingers, but they are us. The fact that we're bipedal and homo, and they are as well, the odds of that coming from another planet, having the same thing. I mean, again, Michio Kaku will say, if they come from another planet, most likely the main thing life comes from is water. And so they could look like lobster men. And so,
or look at Varginha. Speaking of James Fox, the way that their skin had this like slime, like not slime, but this coating on it, and the red eyes, and then the protrusions on the head, and the sulfur smell. And then I know Marco Leal, who worked on that film with James as well, said that they had this theory about how they use the river to actually get from where the crash was to Varginha. There's all these other things. And I agree with you. And then like you got Burchett in the news now saying that, he thinks that there's 5 deep water bases. I think he just says whatever the fuck he wants, but
bird shit, is that what you call him?
No, Burchett.
Oh, it sounded like you said bird shit.
Don't, Tim. I did not say that, Tim.
Hey, Tim, did you hear what Ty just called you? You listen to it. Play it back.
Yeah, I'm not you. I don't know how to throw those jokes. You're fast.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of find solace in the idea that they could be from the future, not you calling bird shit. I find solace in that because it means that we survive. We are able to succeed. There's a bite going around, an interview bite with Spielberg, where he talks about endorsing the same thing, that they're probably from the future, and that they're like, anthropologists coming back and looking at us and seeing what we're doing and trying to gently guide us. But I think that if you go back in time and then you go back to where you came, you're going back to the same time and the same circumstances as when you left. You're not going back to a different offshoot of that branch that you helped create by changing reality.
I was going to say,
yeah,
obviously time travel, if we are going to go that route, we do have a few problems with the
grandfather clock or grandfather
paradox.
Paradox,
yeah. But and I don't even know if that's as important for us right now. But more so understanding the ideas and the whys, right? Why would they be quote unquote abducting us? Right. I think this future human hypothesis, it does fit very well into kind of checking off the boxes of the UFO lore, if you will. And but what would you say that means about like cryptids and stuff and the paranormal? Have you looked into any of that?
No. I've not met a cryptoid. Cryptocurrency, I'm a little bit invested in. Is that what you're asking? You're asking about cryptocurrency, right? No, it's yeah. I mean, there's high strangeness that comes with the phenomenon that's been going on forever, and it doesn't get a lot of airplay, unfortunately. And so, with regards to like I said to Masters when I was interviewing him, I go, "Hey, how come no one talks about reptilian hybrids? They only talk about gray hybrids. Doesn't that help your case that the grays would be from the future?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he said, you can basically hook up with a sheep, but you're not going to get a sheep man. So the odds of someone from another planet coming here and being able to procreate with us is even more remote. And so it would make sense. But again, no one says, "Oh yeah, then I was, confronted with my reptilian hybrid, son or God." No one talks about that, nor do they talk about the mantis, and no one said that there's a Bigfoot, hybrid out there, which would be pretty cool. But anyway,
or terrifying.
So I think that they're from the future. And, the things that I look at, it's kind of like, because I worked on these crime shows, dude. It's almost like I have to have a mental board where I'm taking yarn and I'm stretching it from one clue to another and everything. And I look at all these things and I go, okay, they say we have every right to do this to you. What does that mean? And you try to stitch it all together. But I see that what they're doing is, with the hybrid program, it's, at first blush, you go, oh, well, they're doing this because we're going to be entering into something where we're going to have to change our physiology. Actually, before that, we might be saying, well, their planet, this is the narrative I used to hear, their planet is dying. And so they want to continue through us. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Why would you want to do that? It's like, you're going to change yourself completely to continue. Well, you're not going to be continuing because you're going to be now human.
You're going to be changing. It doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So then it's we're not procreating. Again, this is Master's thing, that we're not procreating enough. And if we continue going out and projecting out, then what happens is we become very ancestral, and we end up needing more gene supplies. Otherwise, everyone ends up playing the banjo if you're a fan of the movie Deliverance. And so it really becomes
a problem,
important,
actually.
Yeah, that we have a bigger gene pool. And the best way to do that is to go back and take samplings from previous, like us and Cro-Magnon, because we have Cro-Magnon in us, which helps us.
Yes. Yep.
That gene.
And it would make sense that
Neanderthal, excuse me. Yeah.
Yes. And I actually, you know, that it would make sense to a degree of why generational abduction happens, right? Because you'd want to, you'd kind of, the bloodline idea, right? Is you're if you find one that works, you're gonna continue with that bloodline. So that's interesting to me. I mean, what do you? I mean, across your interviews that you've done, aside from this future human hypothesis, like did you notice any other consistent themes or patterns or anything that would suggest like a structured or an interventional, you know, why behind these encounters?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because they are warning us. Well, you don't warn someone if they're on a train and the end of the tracks drops off into an abyss. There's nothing they can do, so why warn them? So
Right.
to me, that's a hopeful message to say, hey,
We can
we're taking
change.
your genes and stuff. We need your genes. But by the way, just as a solid for you, I'll tell you, I saw the end of the tracks and you need to slow your roll now and pull over. And so
Right.
until that happens and we start listening to that, it's falling on deaf ears. And so that in and of itself is a test for humanity.
Why not
Are we?
abduct the president then and just tell him?
Yeah, but what's the president going to do? Is he going to come out and say, all right, so I
I
talked to
was
the aliens
abducted. Yeah,
and
he'd
here's what they
sound like a
said.
lunatic.
Good luck with that. I always like to play a scenario out where the perfect version of disclosure used to be one of an example of the movie When the Earth Stood Still. And so you get a UFO that lands, say it lands on the White House lawn, and this being comes out. Well, from what we hear across the board, they all communicate telepathically. And so that would mean that a representative from the White House, the administration, would come out and they would like listen and then turn with their microphone to the cameras, Fox, CNN, all of them. And they would say, all right, so here's what this guy just said. It's a guy, right? What is your pronoun? And they'd have to find out the pronoun of the alien. Yeah, it could be they want to refer to as them or just gray. Anyway, so then they've got to translate that. But there's going to be people who are going to say, accuse them of manipulating what the message is because we're not hearing it. So does that mean the alien's going to have to go on an old whistle stop tour, on the trains throughout the whole country and communicate to those people person by person? Like, what is the reach of telepathy? Can you do a stadium? Can you, reach out to a stadium of people and telepathically communicate with them? I don't know.
Right.
So there's problems within that type of a full disclosure, because that's the only full disclosure,
Total
disclosure that you're going to get. And so I think it's paramount that that we look at that evidence and say, what is it that we ultimately want? And so when I think of disclosure, it's not a total disclosure, sorry to say. I think what's feasible or realistic is to get more footage. It's to be able to see the nuts and bolts. It's two things, dude. It's to see the nuts and bolts, and we have great photographs and phenomenal footage that the government has that they're sitting on. That's not debatable anymore. We've had politicians who have seen it and have mentioned it. And so we know it's there. And the excuse that the government has had for not showing it to us, one of the excuses is, well, we don't want our enemies to be able to reverse engineer it. And I'm like, wait, hold on here. Supposedly you've got crash retrieval programs that gets these, that get these crafts, whether they're functioning or not, and you're trying to fix them. And you can't effectively reverse engineer it to the point that we're able to get that technology into planes and current stuff that we have right now. But because they had a whole problem, and the whole Bob Lazar, mythology is all that he was there and they were trying to work on this in the 80s, 90s, et cetera. So we could look at a picture and actually figure out how to reverse engineer this. Well, what if I go back in time and I show my my smartphone to just 100 years ago and say, hey, they'll never figure out how this frickin' thing
Right. They might
operates.
get it to turn on. They might
Maybe
even
to
get
turn
it,
on. Yeah.
but they're
Maybe
never going to
to,
get it. No.
yeah. Yeah. But to get them to figure out how to swipe left or right, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah.
But so then the question is, then where do we land with that? Where do we ultimately, end up with this technology? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, where do we ultimately end up? And what do you think of?
Oh, sorry, I didn't even finish my point. So that's the first level of this, which is that technology. Then the next one for disclosure is going to be the beings that we've got debris of humans, not humans, but humanoids, whatever we want to call them. And so that to me is very, boy, that's a slippery slope, because once you open that Pandora's box, that toothpaste isn't going back in there. So we're going to show the UFOs. We're going to show them to the aliens, to humans, and have them look at them and everything. I would love that. But then do we make that available to everyone so that we can be looking at the genetics of this, the makeup? And are we going to do something with that? Are we going to take the alien bodies, and are we going to, like we're doing with, and we're close to it, with the woolly mammoth, and bring it back?
Right.
So will we bring back this alien? It's dicey, dude. And we're not even talking about the abductions.
Right.
The government's never going to admit that. There's never a way to absolve them and say no. And by the way, why don't the aliens show up, hire a really good PR firm, and say, look, we need some humans for some stuff that we're doing. And there's this thing, we don't like to discuss it. It's a probing thing that happens at the back, and that's part of it. But other than that, it's a little scary, but we'll give you a lollipop at the end. And are there any volunteers? I am willing to admit that there's going to be a line that'll go from here to New York of people going, sign me up, let's do it. At least I get a chance to talk and commune with you and everything. I'm good to go. But they don't do that.
No.
So what does that tell you? They're taking people who, for the most part, at the beginning, do not want this. But I've been to plenty experiencer support groups, and I filmed at one. And that's going to be in my new documentary coming next year. And I got to tell you, I asked them, I said, how many of you, if you could go back in time and have this not happen to you, how many of you would want that? No one raised their hand. No one. And I'm in a room of like 18 people.
Not a single one would not do it.
No, even though it's been terrifying and a reality shattering experience, none of them would do that. So there's easier ways to get volunteers for this. Well, first of all, to get volunteers, period, would be a good idea. So there's all these things are little clues,
right,
that we've got to kind of factor in the ultimate, recipe for what's, being baked by these beings.
Right. That's actually, I don't think I've ever had someone pose it like that. That's very, very interesting now that you say that.
That'll happen sometimes with me.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but occasionally I'll say something
No.
misconstrued is something of interest.
Pretty profound, actually. I mean, so your newest film, it zooms out to the cosmic scale. What evidence or ideas convinced you specifically that life beyond Earth it's not just possible, but it's likely?
Statistically, it's impossible for there not to be life beyond this planet. In the Alien Perspective, which came out in January, that I asked the chief deputy of the TESS program, which is NASA's search before we had the amazing James Webb Telescope. This was the technology that they had. And I said to her, and this is Dr. Elisa Quintana, I said, what happens when NASA finds that solar system, finds that planet, with a Dyson sphere and everything, or a light grid at night? What happens then? What do you guys do then?
Like, what's the protocol?
Yeah. And she started to get the giggles, and I go, what? And she says, we focus on the next flagship technology, but we don't have any protocol when it comes to actually seeing something when we do. And we're both laughing. I'm going, wait, what? That's like building railroad tracks
with no
and not
train.
having, and not having an idea of how to stop the train. It makes no sense. And I said, well, who would have that? And she suggested, well, NASA or SETI, as much as people bemoan them, do have a program, a protocol. And so now I'm going to interview Seth Shostak. Yeah, and ask him about it, and find out what the protocol is. And so it's just really interesting that again, that's a sign of us humans not thinking things all the way through, and that's at a high level.
Yeah, right. And I know we have about 7 minutes left. Listen, I really want to do a part 2 with a part 2 and 3 and 4 and probably 5. And I just definitely, for some reason, when I interview someone, I know if I would gel with them in a way. And you're just one of those people that you really you're able to roll really well and spar pretty well. So, if you ever needed, help with your films, I got experience. So anyway, do you think that there's a lot of people that are religious? They have religious ideology, and those people end up in the government. They end up in the military. They end up in positions of power, whether it's the church, yada yada yada. Don't you think by definition, angels, demons, what our ancestors called gods, by definition, that's non-human intelligence, with faster than light travel and meets all that criteria. So, I mean, have you looked into that side of it? And what do you think?
Well,
same term, just different lens.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Life Beyond Earth, the new doc, we talk about, first of all, we look at metamaterial, this exotic material, and we do a breakdown of that. And we go to Caltech. We're not going to someone who is a professor, but they're not a professor in extraterrestrial material, which is who Professor Francois Tussaud is at Caltech. That's all this guy does is he looks at meteorites, he looks at comets, material that we've had. He knows it better than anyone on the planet. In fact, he's revolutionized analysis of this technology and been able to pinpoint things that others could not. So we had him look at it. So that's one component of that. But we also, in addition to taking down a UFO carpetbagger who's has a long history, I don't want to give it away, but who's been putting this agenda, one of the more crazier stories forward, we actually debunk it with photographic evidence. But the most important thing, and the reason why I mention it, is we look into downloads. And so we're looking at downloads as an example. Our space program and the Russians' space program were all created by two people who believe that they got the technology in part from extraterrestrials. And so you can call it Muse, you can call it whatever, but Paul McCartney wakes up with the song Yesterday in his head, fully formed. Not the lyrics, but the melody fully formed. That was a gift. I mean, how do four lads from Liverpool, middle class, lower middle class neighborhood, change music as we know it without having some intervention going on, even in the arts? So I feel like these, downloads and being affected and getting this information, it's been coming forever, and it's shaped things. And so when it comes to religion, we can find, like, the Jesus story has been repeated 12 times. This is the 13th iteration of it, all through the ages, where someone's born in a manger and there's apostles and everything, the same story, the crucifixion, everything. So, we're storytellers. We've been doing that since cavemen time, and we've been drawing them on walls and stuff, right? So I feel like, it's part of a rationale for things. Why is there this sun? Why is it sometimes snow on the ground? Why? We look for reasons. And so until science shows up and says, oh, here's the reason why, well, we got to come up with something, because humans do not like dangling modifiers when it comes to understanding how life works. So we do that. So when people start folding religion into this, it makes me a little nervous. Lou Elizondo has told me about when he would brief some of these people, these generals, and a chunk of them would come up and say, or a few of them would come up and say, you're doing God's work. And others would say, they're demons, right?
And
these
get
beings.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's their dogma that they were raised into. And so I'm agnostic, dude. It's like, show me the money. I need to see the evidence and stuff, but I don't believe that, man is I don't, well, first of all, I don't think that it's possible for us to be born with sin. So why we have to already be at a deficit that we come into this? When I saw my daughter, when she was born, everything, I look at this pure child and I go, sinning will come later.
Yeah, no, you're right though.
But we have to be allowed to stumble. We learn nothing from success. Zero. We only learn from our failures.
Struggle.
And they're not failures. They are steps to get us to where we want to go. And so because we're a tenacious people, we will get there. I have every bit of faith that we will get there. But to wield any kind of religion or spirituality or belief against others is unconscionable, and you need to question if someone's doing that. Just do your own inner compass and know that, that things happen for a reason. Doesn't always have to be the fantastical. And that, I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to that one thing, which is treat people as you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing, lastly, I just want to say, which is with regards to, the environment. As a father, I'm gravely concerned with where we're going. And I feel like anything we can do, and especially if you're in the UFO community, I believe that you support that agenda, that you're not going to ignore what these beings are telling us, right? Because it's only two things that we're really getting specifically that are repeat comments, help technology not being great for us and helping the planet. I think if we don't endorse anyone who wants to help the planet, then why are we following these advanced beings? Why are we listening to them? Right. We should be shunning them. If you don't believe that, you should, like, you get your UFO community membership card thrown out if you're the belief that, that we're not doing that.
Right.
The damage. I mean, we already see it in people not successfully procreating anymore. The sterile artifacts of that is just, through the roof. It is through the roof.
And it's crazy. I know you got to get out. What's one thing after everything you've seen and learned, what keeps you up at night right now?
Porn.
In regards.
Oh, sorry. Well, that was not. It does not. It does not keep me. That would do the opposite. I would imagine.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What keeps me up at night is the question of, what is it all about? I want to know what the third act is. I want to know what we're ultimately going to be experiencing. It excites me, the what ifs. a third of my IPs, the stories that I create. I mean, right now I'm pivoting from documentaries. I'm going to probably take a break. I've got 2 more documentaries coming out next year. And then I'm going back into doing fiction, where I can take the themes that I've learned and I can infuse them in stories and take them to the next level that I'm not seeing played out. And so Spielberg is doing that right now with his new film that's going to be coming out next. I believe it's June 12th. It's going to be epic. That's all I have to say. But yeah, so I'm excited about doing that. I'm excited about taking what I've learned and then putting it again into a kind of a wish fulfillment situation. That is exciting to me. And so taking everything I've learned, I feel like I've gone as far as I can. And occasionally I still have things that surprise me, but that I hear. So, I still want to be, a part of an active part of the community.
We should talk, man. I got something I wrote, and it almost pays homage to your first film. So all your links will be in the description below. Both of your movies are available on Amazon, and that is The Alien Perspective and is it Life Beyond Earth?
Yeah, the new one, Life Beyond Earth, which is kind of a part 2 to the first one. You don't need to have to see the first one to see the second one, but Life Beyond Earth is the one that is the most recent one and has some great mic drops in that as well.
Well, thank you for everything that you do, Dean. I know you got to get on the road, so I would love to have you back on. I think we have a much larger conversation to have, and I just again thank you for doing this, and for everyone out there, definitely get over to Amazon and watch these movies because you will not be disappointed. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah, man. All right. We'll do it again sometime, all right?
Cheers.
We'll talk.
Okay.